going to see when they do take their assessment. The next thing is focus on how to teach. Once I know what, it's way quieter than I thought. Once I know what to teach, I got to focus on how to teach. Which means we have to move away from what we want kids to remember towards what we want kids to be able to do. That's a major shift in science education happening right now. I'm guilty of this. One of the first things I did with the teachers in my district was I'm transparent with them all the time. The mistake I make in my class all too often is trying to help kids remember. How can I put this in a song? How can I make this a jingle? How can I make this a poem? King Henry came over for a grape soda. That's to help them remember the levels of classification and order, right? Dumb King Henry came over for grape soda. What's the one for the planners? My mom made us pepperoni pizza. So what's that one? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Right? But that's all about how can I get kids to remember this? Even when I teach kids cell parts, we do the city analogy. You ever done this? The nucleus is like the main office. And the cytoplasm is like the gate around the city. And the mitochondria is like the power plant in the city. And the ribosome is kind of like the, you know what I mean? But that's still trying to get kids to remember. How can I put this in a way for them to remember? If we want to drive their performance in science, we've got to shift from that to what do I want kids to be able to do. I still spend a day trying to get kids to remember, but the very next day I'm switching to now what I want you to be able to do. Yesterday we did that cell analogy assignment, and we all talked about how the nucleus is the this and the mitochondria is the that. Well, now today I need you to be predicting and problem solving. What would happen inside of a cell if you shut off all the ribosomes at once? And I need kids to be able to sit at their desk and think, or talk to their teammates and think, well, let's see. What do ribosomes do? Yell out. Ribosomes make proteins. So if we shut off the ribosomes, then what happens? The cell
Withers and dies.
Is that right?
it's not wrong. Cell withers and dies, yes, but why?
I'm about to try making it again.
Because it can't make any more proteins. Which is only helpful if we know what proteins do inside the cells. Right? Or what about this question? Plant cells put all of their chloroplasts in the leaves. And they put very little, if any, almost no chloroplasts in the root cells. Why is that?
The sun.
So the kids, you're right, but a kid has to be thinking, okay, so what do chloroplasts do? What do chloroplasts do? Absorb sunlight. So now, why would the plant put all the chloroplasts in the leaves and not the roots? Because the leaves are directly exposed to the sun, right? It wouldn't make sense for the plant to put any chloroplasts in the roots because the roots are... That's why when you pull up plants, the roots are always white and not green. Or clear and not green. But that's the shift from being able to remember what chloroplasts do to now being able to problem solve and predict and think. Right? You got to be making the shift from what do I want you to remember to what I want you to be able to do. I want you to be able to problem solve. I want you to be able to take what you know and predict. I want you to be able to... And that's the type of instruction it's going to take to drive student performance higher in science. Why? I'm going to show you in a minute some insider information from the DOE about how students are being... I'll do it now. Someone from the DOE sent me... I can't print it. Please don't take any screenshots because I'm not supposed to have this. But this is a possible question they're thinking about for the next milestone in 9th grade. And it might be too small for you to read it, so I'll read it. A student is asked to produce a model of a cell that functions in eating and digesting foreign cells in the body. The student produces the model picture. Which statement provides the best feedback for the model? So in order to answer this question, the student has to know what cell parts do, but they also have to know, how do I evaluate a model for something? And that's why I gave her some snaps a minute ago. Because she used the word model in her question. You remember this? Let me show you something.
Is the answer A?
Huh?
Is the answer A?
The answer is A. Give a round of applause, being right. The answer is A, right? Because it's an animal cell, and animal cells don't have cell walls. But if we look at it, I want to show you what you've already seen. But I want to pull out a major point. Oh, come on. The Georgia Science Standards of Excellence. You got a grade. It doesn't matter.
4.
4. Thank you. What do the 4th grade science standards say? It says, the first thing I'm supposed to teach my kids how to do is ask questions to compare and contrast technological advances that have changed the amount and type of information on distant objects in the sky. Now, if I, as a teacher, taught them about the technological advances, hey, we used to use small telescopes, and now we use big microscopes, and then we started sending probes out like the Galileo probe, and whatever the other thing was, the Casio probe. I've done a good job of teaching them the technological advances, but I have not taught them how to ask questions. Number 2 says, teach kids how to construct an argument on why some stars, including Earth, the sun, appear to be brighter or larger than others. I could very easily explain this to my kids. Hey, some stars in the sky are brighter either because they are bigger or because they are closer. I've just done a good job of helping them understand why stars are brighter, but I have not given them the chance to learn how to construct an explanation. Too much of the instruction in my county is focused on explaining the content to kids without ever giving them the opportunity to take the content and do what those other things say. How do I construct an explanation? How do I interpret data? How do I ask questions? And that's why I started our time together the way I did with that explosion thing on the screen. How do we teach kids to ask questions? Nobody's ever taught me that. But I do it for my kids the same way I did it with you guys. Hey guys, explosions are scientific topics, but let's ask some questions that can help us understand. And you guys posed the questions, didn't you? How do we know what type of energy it started with? How do we know where the energy goes? How do we know? We got to be giving kids opportunities to ask questions. Because that's what they're going to be assessed on. Right? One of them says, look at SB4A, the bottom one. Teach kids how to develop a model to support the explanation of why the length of day and night change. I could teach my kids why day and night changes. Sometimes day is longer than night, but that's because of the way the earth spins or goes around the sun. Sometimes we're tilted toward the sun, so we see the sun more hours. And sometimes we're tilted away from the sun, so that we see sun less hours. I've done a good job of explaining it to them, but I have not given them the chance to develop a model. So when they get to their milestone, and the milestone says, evaluate somebody else's model, my kids are like, I don't know what they're asking me to do. I wish they would just ask me why a day is longer. This is the way our kids are being assessed, so this is the shift in the way we have to be teaching them. Right? I have to teach you how to ask good science questions. I have to teach you how to construct a model. I have to teach you how to make a scientific argument, how to construct an explanation. I have to spend just as much time on that as I do teaching you the content things that we used to teach. It's no longer good enough for me to get you to remember all the cell parts. My job now is to ask you, can you build a model that reflects your understanding of how cell parts maintain homeostasis? Because that's what they're going to be asked to do when the milestone rolls around. Does this make sense? Yes or no?
Yes.
If we want to drive student performance, and I'm only sharing with you guys what I shared with one of my middle schools. If this doesn't match where you are in Dalton, let me know and I'll stop talking. Last thing, and then I'm done. Oh, I can't click it because I'm not in the PowerPoint. So focus on what to teach. Looking at the standards. I did this for all the science class courses in my district. I color-coded this and I sent it back to them. Right? Everything that's a science engineering practice, I made it blue. Everything that's a content, I made it red. So, you see where it says, plan and carry out investigation on the effects of balanced and unbalanced? See that? I made plan and carry out investigation blue, the effects of balanced and unbalanced forces on an object in red. And I said, I need to see evidence in your class that you're teaching kids both. I know you know how to teach them the red part because I saw you do that yesterday. You did a good job of explaining to them, if I push the shopping cart's going to roll because the forces are unbalanced, but you never gave the kids a chance to plan out their experiment. I went to an 8th grade class, my favorite 8th grade science teacher at a middle school, and the day that I